Hello everyone, welcome back to the Swiss Chamber of Commerce podcast to talk about Swiss companies in Singapore. My name is Loretta Dalpozzo and today I will bring you the perspective of Swiss giant Sulzer through the voice of Victor Chiam, head of Sulzer Chemtech Asia Pacific. Welcome, Victor. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks very much, Loretta.
Thank you for your time. First of all, can I ask you to briefly introduce yourself? What do you do as Sulzer Chemtech?
My name is Victor Chiam. I am the head of Chemtech Asia Pacific. I'm responsible for the Chemtech business in Asia, which covers from China all the way to Australia. So my business is mostly in the separation technology business, but also I do a fair bit of taking care of the countries.
So being the head of Sulzer Chemtech Asia Pacific, what does it look like? What's your day look like?
I think most of my time is spent on either with the customers on projects or actually working with my employees on the next most exciting things, that's happening in the market. So I tend to spend a lot of time looking towards what's coming up to the future and coming out with plans because actually, we are in the most high potential growth area or region for our business in Sulzer.
So what are the most exciting things coming up then?
If I look at Asia, I think we see that even though there is a bit of threat of recession, there is a big acceleration or big focus on sustainable solutions. So where our business is, where we are heavily involved in the energy sector, I think there is a lot more traction now. Some of it mandated by the government, but a lot of it is driven actually also by the companies themselves.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what is Sulzer? Of course, it's very well known in Switzerland, maybe a little bit less known in Asia. If you should describe the company in a couple of keywords, what would you say?
I would say it's a leader, in fluid engineering. We are in the business of separation and also pumping solutions. So we provide a lot of equipment. So for the energy sector, also for the general industries. So currently our equipment are used in a lot of refineries, petrochemical plants, but also in different segments like water treatment. We are also in pulp and paper and also in power generation.
Can you explain very briefly what you mean? What is it exactly, separation technology?
Separation technology refers specifically to actually separation of chemicals or petrochemicals. So to achieve a certain chemical product, coming from crude oil. So most chemical products come from hydrocarbons, which is crude oil. So crude oil needs to be separated in order to produce or to get all the desired products. So the whole process to achieve, let's say, diesel, gasoline, from crude oil to diesel, you need the separation process.
And you've been with the companies for 30 years. That's a very long time. You've obviously seen a lot of changes, a lot of innovation. What come to your mind as one of the milestones that you are very proud of?
I think the Sulzer story is in Asia is when we invested a lot in bringing our technology into Asia. So for example, we have set up a lot of joint ventures in China. So in China, we set up a joint venture for pumps in 1990s. We also built our first large manufacturing facility in Shanghai almost 30 years ago. So I think if I look at the history of Sulzer, I think the spirit of moving beyond the home country was the turning point because prior to, I would say, the late 80s, a lot of the business, for example, like 50% of Sulzer employees were still in Switzerland. But today, if I look at the employees, they are from all over the world.
Can you give us some number to actually give a sense of how big is Sulzer around the world?
So we have about 12,000 employees globally and about 3,000 employees in Asia. So currently China is our biggest presence.
What are the advantages of being based in Singapore, and from here basically covering the whole Asia Pacific, in terms also of support from the Singapore government, for example?
One obvious advantage is actually access to a very large talent pool. I think that's very important because our business requires a lot of good talented people. So we are able to tap on that. I think the other part that is great about Singapore is I would say the accessibility, whether to travel, but also from a language perspective, because from Singapore we can get, going into the countries, like China, you need to have some form of, knowledge of the Chinese language. It's not too difficult.
So you are in charge of Sulzer Chemtech. What are the factors that contribute to Chemtech's success?
I would say PLA is our biggest, most exciting development. So, we're all talking about plastic and it's unsustainable the way we use plastic and plastic itself. It is not self-degradable. And what I'm excited about PLA is because this is a particular type of biodegradable plastic, and Sulzer currently has the technology, or partnering the technology together with one of the few largest PLA producers, for example, like NatureWorks, and we are partnering them to build these plants. So the first plant's already been built.
There is a lot of talk about sustainable. Every company now wants to be sustainable. There is also a lot of greenwash. Sometimes solutions are easy solution, not long-term solution.
There's a lot of skeptics on the green solution, saying that actually, some of the solutions actually is using up too much energy, and also is harming the oceans, and you're using up food and agriculture and plants, which there are people who are going hungry around the world. So yes, it's right. But I believe, because, from Sulzer perspective, that technology will be the big game changer. I think partially that's also driven by, the computing power. So now you see that we have more capability in order to, to design and to crack certain difficult to crack codes. So in our sphere of separation, because we are into chemistry, so all these bonds, about all this recycling and all the purification part requires now very, very much higher, more demanding purification. And so this is my hope. I think from my generation and the next generation, we can come out with technologies that will truly, improve the environment, uses less energy, and then uses less of the earth resources.
There is this idea that because some of these countries around Singapore are still developing, therefore the priorities were others. Is that true?
Yes, that's the thinking years ago. But I think if you look today or the last 5 years, you see that China is also investing quite a bit. And recently, just as an example, with this PLA, we just signed an agreement with a Chinese producer to build a PLA plant in China. So, and there are already, besides our plant and our technology, there are already other smaller PLA producers. So I think they are quietly building or going into the more sustainable. And I think the sustainable plastic is just one example.
So do you think they're catching up?
I think if you ask the industry player, especially on chemical recycling or biofuels, you see that countries like Japan, where Asahi Kasei and Mitsubishi Chemical, they are trying to develop their own technology. There's a lot of R&D work going on. And if you look at the Japanese government making the commitment, to be net zero by 2050, they already have, verbally, politically, they put their stamp on it. And the same thing with China. I think the G7, if you talk about the G7, two of them at least are in Asia. They will be, as a group, they will actually be forcing each other to actually oblige to the commitment. So we will see China, Japan leading some of the way. And the other countries, which I would say, I think you need to be financially strong in order to be able to finance some of these projects.
So what are the challenges to try to be more sustainable, to try to be greener?
I think one thing is to reduce the cost. I think the main problem for, I think, this major adoption, this technology is just, first of all, the capex, the investment required is usually very high. The second problem, a lot of the green solutions is it also uses a lot of energy. So I think this is the part where I think companies like Sulzer, with other technology companies, we are doing a lot of R&D, to better come up with processes that uses less energy and more innovative way of separation.
If we talk about sustainable solution and we talk about clothing, for example, you also have an interesting partnership with H&M. We know that it's very easy to throw our clothes away, but it's much more difficult to actually do something with it and recycle our clothes or recycle fabrics. So what kind of solution is Sulzer offering?
More than 70% of the clothes we throw away ends up in a landfill. And a lot of people do not know that actually our clothes, a lot of the material used in clothes is polyester. And this is not degradable. So this goes on, if you landfill it stays there for 500 years or even more. So One again has come up with this technology, and they are using our purification part, to complete the whole chain of recycling. But what's interesting about our Sulzer, H&M, and One Again solution is that this is a one-step process. In other words, you don't have to break it down. And with this process, we take out the plastic part, which is the polyester, the PET part, and then separate it from the cellulosic part, which is the cotton part, the pulp part, and then return it back to virgin PET, which is a plastic in the form of pellets, so that these pellets can be again put it back into the production for textile. So what you have here is actually what we call circularity. That means from a used or worn fabric, we can break it down into the components that is almost pure as a raw material that can be used again to manufacture textile.
You worked also in China. Sulzer is present also in China. How is it different, for example, to operate in China compared to the rest of Asia?
I think China is one of the toughest markets to work for. And before I went to China, you have preconceived ideas about what it is. I think China has evolved and improved so much, especially in the last 10 years, that is not even recognizable. My experience is that the speed that they are moving and also the risk that they are taking, or in coming up with moving on to investments and production and trying new things is incredible. I've never seen a country that has moved so fast, and we are all benefiting from that. So we were very blessed or very fortunate to be there quite early.
We are talking about China, so here we go a little bit wider, right? So geopolitics is a challenge for many companies. We know there are a lot of tension between United States and China. Does this have any effect on you?
No, the impact has been very minimal. I think the one impact we had was when Russia invaded Ukraine. Our Russia business was impacted. So we have closed our Russian operations. But fortunately, our exposure to Russian business is not big. So that didn't really impacted us so much. But I think as a company, as general population around the world, we hope that the conflict will end soon. And that, I think, will help to calm a lot more things down. The current, tension between U.S. and China, it is a source of concern. But Switzerland and China has always been very close. The relationship is very close. The understanding is we've always got great support. I think we will be less affected by it. So currently we have very little impact.
We were talking about big things coming up in 2023. I understand you will be moving to Switzerland. This is a big thing for you. You're going to have a global role.
Yes, that's interesting and exciting part of my life. I'm looking forward to going to winter tour. Winter tour for me is it's a nice small town. Has a lot of history. I mean, Sulzer is a 200-year-old company, and winter tour itself actually grew up as an industrial town from Sulzer, because Sulzer was founded by two brothers, Johann Jakob Sulzer and Solomon Sulzer, and there are a lot of innovative things that they did even 200 years ago. And did you know that Sulzer set up the first apprentice, or not the first, but they were very innovative in having apprenticeship, which today you see Switzerland, that's one of the hallmark of the Swiss education system, apprenticeship. I think it's really something that when I walk the streets of winter tour, I can get a sense of the history behind it.
You know winter tour better than I do, actually. Then after 30 years working in Asia for Sulzer, what are you bringing to the headquarters?
I hope I can be the bridge, between Asia and Europe, and also to the others, because I think I have a lot of colleagues who have not lived and worked in Asia. I think having me together with them in all these discussions will help the bridge. So
are you afraid of the cold or not at all?
No, I'm not afraid. Actually, it's more I think my wife is more afraid of the cold. I'm actually looking forward to it, but we always say there's no bad weather, it's only bad clothing.
Thank you, Victor Chiam. It was very fascinating talking to you. All the best for new adventure in Switzerland. And thank you for listening, for watching. My name is Loretta Dalpozzo, and see you next time with more insight into Swiss companies. Stay tuned.